we flip some switches? Welcome, everybody, to Koinonia. They're downstairs. Everybody in the basement, Koinonia is starting. Everybody stomp on the ground. They don't start till 7. Yeah. If you guys want to queue up the songs on your phone for lyrics, the projector's still broken. We've got Arms of Love, Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord, and Amazing Grace. Yeah. Maybe not so on the live stream so Joe can't see. Okay, never mind. We're fine. Oh, we're already on the live stream, so it's already recorded, and I just spoke it into the microphone. We have a dog, everybody, on the live stream. So, welcome. I was looking up at the screen, and we don't have a screen again. Announcements. Put in your phone. Open up your phone. We are figuring out final details for the spring retreat. It's going to be a Western Oregon spring retreat. So if you don't have your vaccine now, get it. If you haven't caught COVID-19 yet, get it.
2 weeks is all you need, so catch it now.
You know, I've had multiple opportunities and I'm thwarted at every time.
Yeah. So, save the date, April 16th through 18th. April 16th through 18th. It's going to be a hoot and a holler. The next thing that you need to save the date for is not this Saturday, because it's the day before Valentine's. Everybody find that special somebody. The next Saturday, we're going to go up to Hoodoo Ski Resort. Hoodoo. You do, we do Hoodoo. Come with us on the 20th to go skiing or snowboarding or snowshoeing. Raise your hand if you're going to go to Hoodoo with us on the 20th. Nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Keep your eyes out for a link. I'm going to send that out tomorrow. It'll be a sign-up link. We need you to sign up because that way we're going to buy tickets. And so we have to buy tickets at a discounted price. So if you're going to, on the Google form, it'll have an option like ski, snowboard, lift tickets, or just not buying anything at all. So there is no lodge indoor right now. Well, maybe that's changed because executive order's been lifted.
Wait a minute, what county is that to shoot?
Yeah, so if the lodge isn't open by that point, there will for sure be big tents where if it's going to be raining or whatever, there's some warming stuff in there underneath the tents so that at least there's an area to sit down. Yeah. So
I will also be present if people want, I will happily stay back if people want, if you've never snowboarded before or something and you're, terrified.
Lessons.
I will be happy to give you the most basic of basics. What?
Don't you also pay for lessons?
No, that's extra. The $50 just a lift ticket.
You don't pay for lessons.
But I can easily...
You can buy lessons if you want to buy lessons.
My son will be with me.
There is no bus.
Yeah, don't worry. You'll be fine.
We'll figure out all those details. On the Google form, you're going to have your information. We'll all reach out to you. Okay. And that's it for announcements. Game night. Okay. 7 to 8 p.m. 7 to 8 p.m. is online games, Jackbox TV and Scriblio and lots of other stuff. So join in on Zoom Thursday night at 7 p.m.
All right. You guys probably know the drill by now. I'd like to get us in the zone for worship. So I'm going to ask that you just kind of close your eyes right now and just kind of relax and just take in 3 really big breaths. Just 3 big breaths and let them out. So 1 big breath, and another one, number 3. And so I just want to invite you right now to just sort of refocus your mind. I know there's lots of distractions in life. We live in a multimedia intensive world. Everything's vying for our attention. In fact, the entire Facebook app is literally designed to get your attention and to keep it. And here, what we want to do is just focus our attention on God. And just for 1 hour, just be focused on who he is, what he's done for us, and how we can commune with him together and commune together. And so I just want to invite you to just sort of set your mind in that space and just sort of invite God in to be here and to worship with us. And if there's anything bugging you, anything agitating you, I invite you to visualize kind of opening your hands and just kind of letting go of it. If you're anything like me, you like to control everything in life, and it can be exhausting. And one of the promises of Jesus is that following him, his burden is easy, his yoke is easy. And so this is just a time to sort of experience that and let whatever go you need to let go and put it in his hands for his control and his time. And then we're going to redirect ourselves to worship Jesus and God tonight. Sing a simple song of love.
So as we prepare to partake in the Lord's Supper here in just a few minutes, I want you to think about something. Just think about this question. Have you ever had a party, an event, a gathering that you hear about, and you say, man, I really hope I get invited. I really hope I'm good enough to get selected to participate in something like this, whatever it might be. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands or anything, but just think about that. Have you ever been in a position in your life where you ask yourself, am I good enough to be invited? Am I good enough to be a part of this? Am I good enough to belong? This afternoon, this afternoon, I had to think for a sec, at our discipleship group, we read over the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. The righteous, holy, perfect Pharisee who comes to the temple and says, Lord, I thank you that I am not like this tax collector over here. I thank you that I am better, that I belong, that I deserve your goodness because of my good works. And then we read about the poor tax collector, one of the most looked down people in all of society, who says, Lord, have mercy on me. He didn't even lift his head up to heaven because he realized what a sinner he was. And then Jesus goes on to explain how it was the tax collector, not the Pharisee, who left justified. The tax collector recognized without a doubt that he did not belong based on his own merit. He was not worthy. He recognized he had no place in God's holy temple. But yet, Jesus says he is the one who is justified because he recognized that he does not belong by his own merit. It's only by God's goodness that he is allowed. And at the same time, the irony of communion, the irony of the Lord's table, is the only qualification to belong is for us to recognize that we don't belong based on anything we can do. To recognize Christ has done it all in his death and resurrection. If you believe that, if you believe that Christ has truly paid it all, that Jesus has paid it all, as the song says, then this table's for you. If you can recognize that, and if that is the confession of your heart that Jesus has paid it all for your sin, that he has made you alive and made you right with God, then this is for you. This time is for you. And if you can't say that with certainty, if you're not 100% certain on who this Jesus guy is, what his death means for you, what the implications are, then we'd encourage you to refrain in this time from partaking and instead take the far more important step of examining deeper what it means to be a follower of Christ, what it means to recognize and acknowledge that Jesus is Lord and that he has paid the ultimate price for your sin. So how we're going to do it this evening, we've gotten a little familiar with the routine over the last couple weeks. In just a minute, Richard's going to start playing a song. During that song, as you feel led, as the Lord leads you, just come up, partake. We have wine in the darker cups over here, juice here. And as the Lord leads you, head back to your seats and take some time to just reflect upon the significance of Christ's death and resurrection, the fact that he calls us to celebrate that, to partake in that in this gift of communion, and reflect upon the words that Richard will be singing and Carmen playing for us. So, and then after that, we're going to go into a time of study. But I would just encourage you to reflect upon the realization that because we realize we do not belong, God has brought us near to him. So, Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, as he was celebrating the Last Supper with his disciples, he took a piece of bread and he broke it in half. And he said, take and eat. He gave it to his friends. He said, take and eat. This is my body, which is broken for you, which would, in just a couple hours, literally be broken in two on the cross as atonement for your sin. And shortly after that, after supper, he took a cup of wine and he poured it out and he gave it to his disciples. And he said, take and drink of this wine. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for you. Do this as often as you drink of it, as often as you gather in fellowship in remembrance of me. Come, take and drink as the Lord leads you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And 'twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Though many dangers, toils, and snares we have already
sound that saved a wretch like me. And I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amen. Well, I have the privilege and honor of talking to you tonight, and I'm actually really excited about this because I love this passage, and I love these aha moments in life. So these aha moments in life are like they're life transforming. Many of you have maybe heard of this thing called a paradigm shift. How many people have heard of a paradigm shift? Gotcha. So I'm going to tell you a little story. So this guy's on a train, and he sees these little kids. And it's on a subway, excuse me. And the kids are just awful. They're throwing things. They're being mean. They're picking on each other. And there's this father, and he's just sitting there, doing nothing. This guy is like, he's getting irate. He can't believe it. These kids are causing like a commotion. They're screaming, they're yelling. They're totally out of control. And the man finally speaks up and he says, "Hey man, aren't you going to do something about your kids?" And the man looks up at him and he says, "Sir, I'm so sorry. My wife just died. I don't know what to do." It's a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. And now that man felt like garbage inside because what he thought it looked like from the outside wasn't what it looked like from the inside. And today I want to invite you to look at this passage in John as the way that people come to see Jesus. In fact, everything we've been talking about is literally how people come to talk about Jesus. And one of the things you're going to notice is that sometimes how people talk about Jesus isn't the same Jesus that you know. It's not the same one that you're like, "I don't know that guy. Like, who are you talking about?" And so what we start with is Jesus, right? He's having this conversation with the Pharisees. And kind of like crazy, right? He gets up there and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm the living water." And if you remember, we explained what the Pharisees did, right? They went down and there was a spring which was considered living water, and they brought it up and they'd pour it around the altar, and they would do this every morning for 10 days. And this is during the Feast of Booths. And they're like, "What? Like, you're living water? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you drink of my water, you'll never get thirsty, right? And there'll be springs of living water coming out of you," which is a reference to the Holy Spirit. And so one of the next things we learned is that after they do this, at the end of the time, right, they light up the temple. There's these big pillars. You can go watch videos of it. It's amazing. And they light up all the pillars inside of the temple and outside in the courtyard. And it's super bright at night. And what does Jesus say there? He says, "I'm the light of the world." And they're sitting there and they're like, "Okay." And then Jesus says some other things. He says, "If you knew my Father, you would know me." They're like, "We do know our father, and that's Abraham. And who are you?" Like, and then he tells them, you're slaves to sin." And they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, we've never been enslaved. Like, are you crazy?" And Jesus moves along in the passage. And if you stopped right there, you'd just kind of be like, okay, Jesus is just kind of like talking what seems to be nonsense. But Jesus is going somewhere. And one of the things that I want to invite you to see is that the end of John 8 is a paradigm moment. It is a changing of the gate where you will never see Jesus the same way again. And that oftentimes when people approach Jesus until they've had the paradigm shift, they can't see it. And this is really, really difficult for people to understand. And I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to leave out names so that people are left anonymous. But there was a girl from Kuwait. She came to Chemeketa and we hung out and talked for like a whole year. And she was, she was kind of struggling. She wasn't sure. Half her family here was kind of Christian, and half her family was Muslim back home. And so she told me the story about how, like, hey, Jesus and Muhammad, man, they're cool. And I didn't press her on it. I was like, okay, cool. Jesus and Muhammad are cool. They just need to hang out, and everything will be fine. And everyone needs to just chill down because people take it too seriously. And so that's fine. But over the course of a year, we sat down and we looked at passages like this one. And we looked at other passages. And it was amazing to watch. I never had to tell her a single word, but she could read it for herself. And the paradigm shift began to happen. And there was this moment, this conversation, where we had this conversation. I remember asking her, I said, so, we've been reading a lot together. So, after looking truly at who Jesus says he is, not what other people say he is, but who he says he is, if Muhammad tells you to do something in Jesus, who do you follow? And I knew the paradigm moment had been completed because she looked at me and she said, Jesus, because he is God. And this is for many Christians, it's like, oh yeah, we've heard this, like, no big deal, Richard. But you have to understand something. For a lot of people looking in, Jesus is a nice guy. He's a teacher. He's a, do-gooder. He's like, oh yeah, that guy who's like all the other religious leaders. And one of the things I would tell you to do, go compare Jesus to the religious leaders. I'm not afraid if you do it. Go do it. Because I think Jesus will stand out like a sore thumb. And I don't say that arrogantly because there's no special thing that does. But the point is, these paradigm moments for people looking from the outside, right? It's really hard to be like, yeah, Jesus is just having this really weird conversation and saying he's water and bread and life and blah, blah, blah. But there's a point that he's trying to get at. And until the paradigm happens, almost everything else that he said doesn't make any sense. What the heck does it mean to be living water? Like, I don't know about you, but if someone came up to you and said, hey, I'm living water, you'd probably be like, man, I'm going to call the mental institution too. We're going to have a little conversation. You would think that about them, right? I'm the light of the world. And all of a sudden you'd be like, sure. Yeah, you're the light of the world. Those context pieces, those statements only make sense in light of a paradigm shift. And so I want to invite you to read this passage with me and see what I call as the crescendo of this passage. That if you read this whole passage and you missed this, you'd be missing literally the point of this. Literally what Jesus is trying to get at. So go with me now to John chapter 8, verse 48. And we're just going to read through it. And then I'm going to invite you to walk along with me and think about this for yourself. The Jews answered him, are we not right in saying that you, a Samaritan, have a demon? If you want to know why he says that, just go back a couple verses. Jesus answered him, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Yet you do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Truly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. Now stop right there. That is a huge claim. Am I not right? Like, if you heard someone say that, is that not a big, you hear my words, you follow them, you will never see death. Death is universal. Death is the human thing. It is the thing we all experience. It is the thing that we know is coming inevitably, and no one and nothing can stop it. So somebody who says that to death, they're saying something about themselves. They're saying something about that they can beat the one inevitable thing that gets everybody. And trust me, at this time, it's no secret that death gets everybody. This idea that in the ancient world, they're like, everybody just magically comes back to the dead. No, we know that from Roman letters and every major philosopher, death is final. That was their view on it. So listen to what they say in response to him. I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. And the Jews said to him, now we know you have a demon. Now we know you crazy. We were suspicious before, but now you just got the rubber stamp of approval, and we know it. And I want you to back up for a second. Because what Jesus is going towards, what he's about to say, is literally one of the biggest stumbling blocks for everybody who's not in the Christian faith, or people who are. It is the identity of Jesus. You see, if Jesus was just some really nice guy who taught you to love your neighbor and do really nice things, it sounds like a very dangerous person. I mean, Rylan, are you scared of somebody that? Like the nice guy who comes around the neighborhood, he's like, hey, Mr. Rogers, you should love your neighbor and do nice things to him. Okay, cool. Like, nice, have a good day. We'll talk to you later, man. Shut the door, end of discussion. Never hear from this person again. But there's something more here to this than that. And so there's this thing that tends to happen in life, and that is that we'll say this tonight, but I guarantee you in 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to revisit this. You're going to revisit this. And you're going to say, do I really believe that? And the reason why is because everything hinges on it. The paradigm shift can't be completed without this. And so the Jews respond to him, yeah, we know you have a demon. We don't need any more proof. Thank you. Have a nice day. And then they say this, Abraham died, as did all the prophets. It means, in other words, all of God's great, awesome people, they're dead. Realize that. Like, they're all dead, and then you're now saying that if we follow you, we cannot die. Yet you say, if anyone keeps my words, he will never die, taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? So a little segue here. Who did, the word patriarchy, which is very it's bad language in our culture, but patriarchy to the Jews meant the fathers of their faith. That's literally all patriarchy means, the fathers of their faith. And who were those fathers? Can anyone spit them out? Abraham. God called him out of Ur, right? Made a covenant with him, cut an animal in half, walked through while Abraham was sleeping. Okay, who else? Isaac, Jacob, right? Esau, right? And then finally we have Joseph, who had a dream. So they're literally saying the guy who started our faith, the first person that God calls and said, you will know me, right? And I will make your descendants, does anyone remember this? As numerous as the stars in the heaven and the sands in the shore. So they're saying, like, you're greater than him. Like, he's the top guy, right? And they died. And then they ask him this question, who do you make yourself out to be? And I just want you to park there for just a second. Who do you make yourself out to be? And it would be really easy in life, right, if the main thing was just like, hey, Jesus is a nice guy here. But there's actually there's a paradigm shift that's required. And the paradigm shift changes the way we see everything backward, and it changes everything that we see forward. So let me give you a quick illustration before we keep reading through the text. Imagine this. You're a disciple. You're following this guy named Jesus, and he says all these weird things, right? And then one day he finally gets crucified. And you're standing in a courtyard, and they're like, hey, aren't you a follower of Jesus? And you're like, no, not that guy. He kooky. And then they're like, no, we know you. You're you're one of his followers. No. And then a servant girl's like, no, trust me, I know you're one of his followers. Nope, I'm not. See, in that moment of doubt, Jesus has failed. Because Jesus died. Now, I don't know about you, but usually when we have great leaders, we don't expect them to go down like flaming, just right? Like this, he builds this whole movement, and then all of a sudden the guy dies. There's actually this really cool passage in Acts where one of the Pharisees tell them, ignore the Christians.
because there's other people who've come before them and have said they're great. And they died, their leader died, and they are no more. So there's one little problem. Jesus comes back to life. But imagine now standing on the shore as Jesus is standing in front of Peter. Peter has to go back through his entire experience with Jesus and reorient everything. Think about that for a second. Everything that Jesus said, now he has to go, oh, wait, what did he mean by that? What did he mean that he's the light of the world? What did he mean that he is the living water? You see, the thing with the paradigm is that it changes everything. It changes how you see the world. It changes how you see others. It changes how you see God. And ultimately, it changes how you see Jesus. And so there's this moment in life, many of you maybe have already experienced this, where this paradigm happens. And you look back and go, whoa, that's what all that meant. Or, whoa, this is what is going to be in the future. And so this is an important passage because it clearly illustrates the essential paradigm shift that must happen in everyone's life in order to truly follow Jesus. So they ask him this question, who do you make yourself out to be? And Jesus answered them, if I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say he is our God. But you have not known him. Now, think about that for a second. These guys practice every day doing everything that God commanded, and then Jesus says, you don't even know him. Insulting or not insulting? Pretty insulting. I mean, he's already told them that their father's the devil, right? It's insulting because they're like, what do you mean we don't know him? And this is the point that we're getting to. But you have not known him. I know him. And if I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you, but I do know him and I keep his word. Your father, Abraham, rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. So what did Jesus just say? Let's unpack that for a second. What did he just say? Yeah, he called him a liar. Yes, he did. What else did he say? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, it's probably worded a little bit different. Okay. But you have not known him. I know him. If you were to say that I do not know him, I, meaning Jesus, would be a liar, like you. But I do know him, and I have kept his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. What did Jesus just say? Unpack this. In fact, how could you meet someone who at least is 2,000 years older than you, right? I mean, think about that for a second. They're like sitting there and they're like, he just said he met Abraham. We said he had a demon. I think it's worse. I think it's actually worse. I think the guy doesn't just have a demon. I think about that. He just said he met a guy 2,000 years ago or more. We don't know exactly how old Abraham was or how long ago he lived. And so listen to their response. You are not yet even 50 years old, and you've seen Abraham? Like, cuckoo. And then this is Jesus' response. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, that means before he ever was, I am. Who said I am to Moses? When God reveals himself to Moses and tells him his personal name. He says, I am. When Moses asks him, but who am I to say sent me? He says, tell them I am sent you. So who did he just tell the Jews he was? Bingo. This is only one of many, many, many passages. And I understand that this can be difficult for some people to wrestle with and grapple with, where they're like, no, but he's like the Son of God. Yeah, that's a title. That's a relationship status. No, but he's the Son of Man. Yeah, it means he's fully human. Yeah, but he's the Son of David. That means he's from the lineage of David. All the titles point to one thing, that he's the Messiah. You want to see this laid out? Go to Matthew chapter 26 and look at Jesus' discussion with Caiaphas the high priest. He tells him straight up, I'm going to judge you one day. Caiaphas rips his robe and says, I don't need any other evidence. Kill the man. Blasphemy is to accredit or claim the power of God to yourself or to something you've done. That is blasphemy. So what did Jesus just do here in the eyes of the Jews? He committed blasphemy. And look at the next verse. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. You see, the paradigm shift is this. Jesus can be like a really good guy. He can be a wonderful teacher. He can even show us a great way to live life. But at the end of the day, all those things are in relationship to this one thing. And that this entire passage builds up. And so when we hear him say, I, am the living water. I am the light of the world. It has all new meaning. And without the paradigm shift, you kind of go like, it's the same guy in John 6, if you remember, who says, unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you'll never enter the kingdom of God. And then people are like, oh, he's a cannibal. Do you guys remember that? And then people were like, I don't think we can follow this guy. He's cuckoo. But you see, in light of the paradigm shift, looking back, we go, we get it. We get it. And so this is what I would invite you to realize, is that in your own life, as you think through who is Jesus, and I promise you this is not the first time you're gonna revisit this, won't be the last. Think through the idea of the paradigm shift. What is different because Jesus claims this? Now, this isn't proof that he's God, but it's proof that he claimed, I am Yahweh. And then this is what I would say. One of the things that's going to happen in your Christian walk is you're going to get doubts. Some of you more than others. And I understand some people are really simplistic and they don't get doubts and, they just, okay, that's fine. Some of us think a lot and it's a problem because we think about all the things that may not work out or all the pieces of the puzzle that aren't completely ready to go. And I would invite you back to this passage and many others when that comes up and think about it like this. The view of who Jesus is changes depending on which side of that paradigm you're on. In fact, many people who struggle with the person of Jesus, they haven't completed the paradigm shift. And so it is very difficult and hard for them. And if you're on that side, hey, we want to struggle with you. We want to talk with you. But I want you to think through the implications of looking back at your life and looking forward and saying, how does this paradigm shift kind of change everything? And for those of us who've been a Christian for like a long time, I didn't grow up in the church, and one of the benefits that I have coming to faith later in life is I remember I went to Willamette University, and Jesus was the coolest thing in the world to me. And I get on the leadership team, and I just watch person after person after person walk away from the faith. I wish I could tell you for like really good reasons, but they weren't. One girl just wanted to do whatever she wanted and gave everyone else the middle finger. And they were like as kind and gracious as you can be. It didn't matter. But people will, inevitably say, I'm not sure about this, or I want to live my life. And yet, when we realize, when we come to this text and we grapple with it and we realize what Jesus is inviting us into is not just a follow him everything will go right in our life. But that if we follow him, we now have access. We literally, and he says this in John 14, we have seen God. He tells his disciples, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And then I have a personal thing that I want to share with you. In my life of going through at Willamette and watching people kind of fall away, I was in this like aha moment where everything was awesome, everything was cool. I like couldn't understand what it was that would, and people and you and I will start focusing on other things. Well, which Christian way to live the life is the best? Which denomination is most true? Which of those, like, who really knows how to best pray, how to best do stuff? That is peripheral. And if you land on that and you focus on that and that's your focus, what are you missing? The centrality of Jesus. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, lose track of that. There is no number of times that you can come back to the gospel and be like, wow, that is amazing. Bitterness is often because we see Christians who fail, and there are people right now I know who I can see them posting on, and they're mad at Christians, and I don't blame them. Totally imperfect, me first. They're mad at Christians, and they post all the hypocrisy, and there's a picture of Joel Osteen getting out of his Ferrari, and that's proof that Christians are all... The centrality of Jesus. That's the key. And if you ever lose sight of that, if you ever get off onto some tangent, off onto something that is irrelevant, everything else doesn't matter. And the purpose of this text is, notice that everything leading up to this point has to do with who Jesus is to you. If you never lose sight of that, and you never lose the awe of the gospel, you won't get sucked into all that other stuff. You'll have disagreements about it, and yes, you'll have to find, right, a church that has maybe the same setup and arrangement of how you want to worship, how you want to do things, but that's not the gospel. Just because Garrett goes to a different church than me doesn't mean he's less Christian in any way, fundamentally. Just because you go to a different church than me, we believe that Jesus is the same person. And that's what matters. Focus on that for the rest of your life. And I promise you, you won't get off into the weeds. Last little thing, how do we cultivate? And this is where I want to go into discussion. I'm assuming that most of you have had the paradigm shift in your life. If not, then you can tell me. There's no judgment. But what I want to ask you is, how do you cultivate that? I'll give you some maybe things to talk about as we go into small groups. Number one, how do we major in the majors and not major in the minors? Because we all, and what that means is how do people make a big deal out of absolutely nothing? How do we not do that? Maybe even talking about like what things are just central and what things aren't. What things really, really matter to the identity, the core of the Christian faith. And if that's something you've never thought about, I'd highly recommend join one of our discipleship groups because we dive into that. And then the last thing is this. When is the last time you got into that paradigm? For a lot of you, including me, I go on my Christian life and it's like, yeah, Jesus, that's old news. Salvation, old news. We all know that. Come on, let's go on to the next thing. No, there is no next thing. That is the thing. And so how do we always kind of bring ourselves back into focus of that thing is what's important. And everything else, yes, they do matter. Worship styles matter, all that other stuff. It matters, but it's not the central thing. And so for your faith and for your future, I would request that you do literally what Jesus did here as he's talking to people. Focus on the central thing, because everything else will make sense in light of it. So let's join up into small groups. And I don't have a way to put the questions up there, so I didn't bother once I figured out that was broken. But the three basic questions are, one, really asking yourself, when's the last time you've gotten into the paradigm? Really thought about what salvation means. Who is Jesus? How does it affect me? What does that mean for my life? And maybe that means, just looking back through your life and being like, God's done a lot of awesome, amazing things that I need to be grateful for, right? Number two, how is it that you can cultivate a gratefulness for what God has done for you? So what are some practices you can do? What are some habits? And then number three, and this is, I think, is the big one. What? Yeah. How do we major? How do we major in the majors and not in the minors? Okay. So let's break up into groups, and maybe we'll go here and there, however you guys want to do it, and we'll break up, and then we can go from there. Sure. Sounds good.